Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Command Score Studio. Welcome to the show. Buckle up because this is gonna be a big episode. Yeah, I did not realize we were getting other spoilers on top of Magic Foundations right now, and there is a spoiler explosion that just happened, so let's jump into it. And we're gonna start off with I think there's like 9 or so Foundation spoilers that we got, and then we're gonna go into the Jumpstart 2025, or also known as Jumpstart Foundations as well, spoilers that I didn't realize we were getting. And there's a lot of those, like the entire thing. So let's jump into it. Elvish Regrower, a 4/3 elf druid for 4 mana in green. When it enters, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. It's another one of those like, ETB, 3 mana, go get something out of your graveyard. Yeah, there's one of those obviously. There's a lot of playing Commander, you know what I'm talking about. That being said, this set 4, it's more specific for more specific decks that care about, permanents in their graveyard, getting those out. Definitely could see play, and does have a relevant creature type with elf. Druid 2 as well too, I guess. For you're say, what is it? Say the Corrosive Protector one? Yeah, that guy. All right, moving on. Bulk Up, instant for 2 mana in red, double target creature's power until end of turn, flash it back for 6. This is a huge card for decks that care about making their creatures absolutely huge. So yeah, I mean, I do have a Power Matters type strategy deck in my collection, and yeah, doubling up a creature's power can be incredibly impactful, especially with something like this at instant speed out of nowhere, and one that you can flash back so you can do it again later, or if you got enough mana on the same turn, literally double, then double again, basically quad power. Though this goblin doesn't have power in its quads, it's in its arms. Moving on, we've got Ashe Animus, and apologies for the blurriness on this art. Actually, I think everything else is non-blurry, just this one for some reason. 4/4 Lizard Druid with Trample for 4 mana in Cruel. When this creature attacks, another target creature control gains Trample and gets +X until turn. X is this creature's power. Again, in a Power Matters type strategy, or an Anthem strategy, or one that can just pump a specific creature, this is a really good card where, hey, this swings, it's already going to be massive because you have other ways to pump it, and then it pumps something else huge too. That being said, there are other creatures out there that, when you do swing, pumps your entire team. Usually don't give Trample though, so this giving Trample is quite nice. Could just be a way to pump up your commander as well if you've got a very aggressive, swingy strategy. Next up, we've got Fishing Rod. Hilarious. Anyone, Hunter out there? No? Okay. Equipment for a single mana. Creature has pay 1, tap Fishing Rod, put a bait counter on Fishing Rod. Makes sense. Whenever creature comes, untap, remove a bait counter from it. If you do, create a 1/1 blue fish creature token. Equip for 2. Interesting. I don't know exactly where this would see play, but it is interesting. There's probably some really weird combo that you could do with this one. Regardless, yeah, it's an interesting way to take equipment, I guess. Yeah, you're going fishing. Next up, Electro Duplicate. Here we go. Search for 3 mana in red. Create tokens, copy of target creature control, except that as haste at the beginning of the end step, sacrifice this token, flash it back for 4. This is literally just a reprint of Heat Shimmer, essentially, but better. Let me know if I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure, like, almost word for word, this is a copy of Heat Shimmer, but it also has flashback. So this, Twin Flame, Heat Shimmer, all going to be seeing play in these same kinds of decks out there, which might be decks that have some ETBs to use and abuse, have some LTBs to use and abuse, have maybe a legendary commander that has like a death trigger that you're like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, copy that. Oh, no, it went away. Awesome, okay. Or one that wants to be aggressive, or maybe one that has some populate effects so you can like keep those tokens around, or like the end of the turn shenanigans kind of stuff that goes on with certain decks out there like Obeka. So yeah, it's an interesting card. It's interesting to see just a significantly better reprint of Heat Shimmer, which is already a really good card. Next up, we've got Sphinx of Forgotten Lore. I don't remember what happened. Actually, so wait, no, this Sphinx knows the Forgotten Lore. Didn't forget it itself, I would assume. Like, it's interesting you ask about that lore. I forgot about it. Okay, 3/3 Sphinx with flash and flying for 4 mana in blue. Where this creature attacks, target insert source card in your graveyard, gains flashback until end of turn. The flashback cost equal to its mana cost. Interesting. So this is a, relevant creature type for some. Like if you're a degenerate like Eddie and have a Sphinx deck, which is gross. If you ever played against Unesh, it's a disgusting commander. I mean, don't be fooled by Sphinxes, okay? Anyways. So outside of like Sphinx Tribal, yeah, I guess if you really care a lot about it, about getting some spells back out of your graveyard, it's a good amount of value throughout the game, absolutely. Now, should you just kind of throw this in any kind of like a spell slinger type build? Probably not. It's more for specific kinds of decks out there, I would say. Sphinxes, maybe some big spells that you want to get back. Extra turns if you're a degenerate. Yeah, I'm not a degenerate, I should say, but with the right play group that likes extra turns, there you go. And when I'm saying extra turns, I mean the ones specifically like Time Warp that don't, leave. You just keep getting it back. Okay, anyways, next up, Exemplar of Light. And by keep getting it back with that one, I mean like you could keep getting it back, but if you flash it back, you're not getting it back. Okay, anyways, Exemplar of Light, a 3/3 angel of flying for 4 mana in white. Whenever you gain life, put a counter on this creature. Whenever you put one or more counters on this creature, draw a card. Triggers only once each turn. Very good, obviously, for life gain strategies. Incredibly good for life gain strategies. And also +1 counter strategies, too. Like, even if you don't have any life gain in your deck at all, but you're all about +1 counters, yeah, that's incredible with this because all of a sudden you just get counters on this and you're drawing cards. Again, only once each turn, but each chipper on the table still, that can be up to 4 cards essentially, right? And also, yeah, if you have a life gain strategy, this is a huge draw engine for you and also can become a giant threat as well. So yeah, definitely consider that. It's much better for, again, the type of life gain strategies that have a bunch of different sources of life gain that trigger throughout the game versus those big bursty ones like, hey, I doubled my life. And this thing's like, cool, I get 1 counter. You also get to draw a card. You're welcome. But yeah, it's better for like, oh, I've got this that gains me a life. This to get like a Soul Sisters type approach. Okay? Moving on. Also, Angels, very relevant tribe. Moving on. Valkyrie's Call. Enchantment for 5 mana in white. Whenever a non-token, non-angel creature control dies, turn that card to the battlefield. Under its control, they counter on it. It has flying and is an angel. There's other types. I'm sure there's a combo that you can do this one where you like remove the fact that it's an angel. I'm sure there's a card that does that. And there you go. You just like sacrifice, it comes back, sacrifice, it comes back, sacrifice, it comes back. I'm probably just missing it right now. Outside of it being like a potential combo card, yeah, this is a very good card where all of a sudden you're like, okay, my creatures get a second life automatically, essentially, as long as they're not angels. Obviously, this is terrible in an angel tribal deck, but anything outside of that where you've got maybe like a Teysa Karlov type strategy where you're sacrificing creatures, you bring them right back, you get, another ETB out of them if they have that, you get an LTB when they leave. I mean, obviously you'll get double that with Teysa, but you get to utilize that kind of creature fodder again. So it's either just like a good way to protect your team and also slightly make them larger and have flying when they come back, and sure, they're angels, that doesn't really matter all that much. Or yeah, combo card, or yeah, just value engine for that sacrifice fodder type strategy. So a very, very good card. One that I think is going to be decently expensive. It is a mythic. Moving on. Skyship Buccaneer. 4/3 human pirate with flying for 5 mana in blue. When this creature enters, if you attack this or draw a card, much less in demand than the previous card I talked about. It's more of like a limited type card. Next up. Dawnwing Marshal, 2/2 cat soldier with flying. Actually, did we jump in? Here, let's see. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we've swapped over now to see, look at the little icon right there. The set symbol right there is different now. That is the J25, I believe Jumpstart 25, or also known as Jumpstart Foundations, from what I read. This is now apparently a new type of spoiler season that is happening at the exact same time as the Magic Foundation spoiler season because lots of products. 2/2 cat soldier with flying for 2 mana in white, 5 mana in total. Creatures control at +1 until end of turn. Yeah, that's not really I mean, sure, if you got a cat or soldier deck, maybe you consider it. A 2/2, it's really crazy these days. Like, 2/2 flyer for 2, and you got an ability, what's it do? Oh, that's not good enough. Yeah, probably more of a, limited type card, or card for other formats, but not quite for, Commander. Next up. Delightful Discovery, instant for 5 mana in total, costs 1 less cast for each spell your opponents have cast this turn, scry 2, draw 2. This is actually quite interesting. It is one where, yeah, in Commander, obviously, your opponents can be casting a good amount of spells, essentially, on a turn. Because it counts all your opponents, not just one. I mean, even one opponent, like, doing spell slinging type things, could cast 4 spells a turn. All of a sudden, this costs just a single mana. Scry 2, draw 2. What would that actually cost for instant speed, typically? I would probably say, like, oh my gosh. I mean, scry 2, draw 2. Like, draw 2 is 3 mana instant speed. Like, we now have that, right? We've got a new, like, divination that is that. So, scry 2, draw 2 at instant speed would probably be 4 mana. So, like, just having one opponent cast a spell, yeah, I mean, obviously that will happen. So, there you go. And if 2 spells happen, you are already kind of getting to that. Now, would you, like, Would you include Divination in a typical list? Probably not. But if you can cast this spell for 3 mana, that's probably what you want to be able to do it at. And less than that even is pretty crazy. Like, you can cast this for, to say, single mana, scry 2, draw 2. That's really, really good. So yeah, for the right type of deck out there that's looking to dig down into the deck, and, you know, maybe if you have a certain play group that, like, has a bunch of Spellslinger type friends, or ones that just cast a bunch of spells or respond to things, cool. Definitely consider this. It's a very cool card. Next up, Dropkick Bomber, a 2/3 Goblin Warrior for 3 mana in red. Other goblins you control get ++1. Pay single red mana until end of turn. Another target goblin you control gains flying, and when this creature deals combat damage, sacrifice it. That's kind of funny. Okay, so yeah, Goblin Tribal most definitely can consider this one because, yeah, already it's just an anthem for goblins. Typically, if you have a decently low to the ground, you know, creature for a tribe and it gives an anthem, you're probably going to be considering it a lot of the time. Now, there's a lot of amazing goblins out there. Obviously, it's one of the most supported tribes. That being said, there's probably going to be some goblin tribal decks that can consider this because, yeah, I mean, you can give your goblins a way to actually get through in combat, and if they weren't going to be getting through in combat anyways, like, yeah, you're just going to have to sacrifice them regardless. Not sacrifice them, they die in combat regardless. So you just, like, swing out, and you're like, okay, well, I'll give that one flying, whatever. These get flying, they hit. Cool. It's interesting. So it's like an anthem plus a way to get through, but with a downside to it. Very gobbo. Moving on. Eidolon of Astral wins. 2/4 enchantment creature, Spirit Vigilance for 3 mana in white. Consolation, whenever it or other enchantment you control enters, choose target creature control. Until end of turn, that creature has base power and toughness 4/4 and gains flying. This is a very interesting card. It is one where definitely, like, Enchantress obviously comes to mind. Consolation. It's one where, like, most constellation effects that really see a lot of play are kind of additive when it comes to value. Like, hey, something enchantment comes into play, draw a card. Something enchantment comes into play, make a 1/1 or whatever it is, essentially. This one's like, hey, make a creature slightly larger, probably, and gain flying. That's nice. It's not going to be for every single Enchantress kind of deck out there versus one that's like, yeah, just perpetual value to be gained. So definitely consider it. But yeah, I mean, it's a good card for those kinds of strategies. It's like if you have like a, I guess, go wide strategy with Enchantress that makes a bunch of tokens or something like that, then yeah, definitely a card to consider. Moving on. Faithful Pike Master, a 3/4 Rhino Monk Soldier. Actually, with the last one too, I guess you could also consider it if you really want to get your commander through, because it does adjust base power and toughness. So there you go. So consider that. Okay, 3/4 Rhino Monk Soldier for 4 mana in white. Enters scry 2 as long as you turn its first strike. Very limited, more so card. Next up, Fire Spitter. Well, 2/2 Dragon with flying for 3 mana in red. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell or dragon spell, 1 damage each opponent. Now, will, like, this see play in a dragon deck? I mean, there's probably, like, I mean, there's just so many absurd dragons these days that I wouldn't think so. Like, even our dragon's like, okay, it's a 2 mana, like, yeah, cool, like, I mean, not Impact Tremors, but that kind of type card, like Gutter Snipe type card for dragons, but only 1 damage. Yeah, this is more so like, yeah, if you've got the non-creature spell type deck, there you go. That's where this is going to see a lot of play. It's just another one of those, again, Gutter Snipe type cards. Doesn't deal the same damage as Gutter Snipe, but it is for all non-creature spells. So if you're looking for that kind of, not group slug damage, but like spell slingy damage, essentially, definitely consider it. Or yeah, maybe there are some dragon decks out there that could consider it too. So yeah, I'm not going to throw it out the window. Like Miriam be like, okay, yeah, I get an extra copy of this, I get another copy of this, get another copy of this. Okay, and then all of a sudden, I cast 1 dragon spell and deal so much damage to all my opponents. Moving on. Gilded Splinterr, a 1/3 artifact creature crab for 3 mana in blue. Can't be blocked. Enters, tap target creature opponent controls, put a stun counter on it. Interesting. I mean, very limited more so card though. So, I mean, you could use and abuse this, I guess, like in an ETB Blink deck. You definitely could. The fact that it can't be blocked doesn't really matter, but yeah, using and abusing the ETB and being like, okay, tap down that, tap down that, tap down that. And if you've got like proliferate effects, obviously, all the better. Next up, Goforth Instant for a single green mana, choose 1. Search the library, basic land card, reveal up in your hand, then shuffle. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. I mean, outside of Alex Hogak deck, which might consider this one, I'm not sure. Yeah, this, like, the searching library for basic land, specific kinds of decks out there want that. Like a low to the ground, like make sure I get my lands and maybe use it for other kinds of things, like, you know, my Cody deck where it's like, okay, you cascade into a 0 mana spell. Sure. Small pump effect instead of that. Like, okay, decks that care about targeting specifically, potentially. So maybe that. Maybe commanders that care about like targeting, like that could be a place to go with this. But other than that, typically those like search for a land, low to the ground cards don't see play unless they have like a huge upside, essentially, like later on in the game. Next up, Goblin Surprise. Cool name. Instant for 3 mana in red. Choose 1 creature you control +2/+0 until end of turn. Create 2 1/1 red goblin creature tokens. I think we've seen, I mean, this is, I don't believe this is a reprint. I only included cards that are not reprints, okay? I think we've seen cards that are like very similar to this one though. And yeah, we've seen it before. If you like tokens, cool. 3 mana again, you're overpaying just a little bit again, but instant speed, so that's good. And then the option to just get +2/+0, that usually is at instant speed at 3 mana, so just having that extra option of the goblins is quite nice. So if you're already running those types of effects, consider it. There you go. All right, next up. Hungry Mega Sloth. Cool name. A 3/3 Sloth Beast with reach for 3 mana in green. Pay 2 tap, put a counter on it. Limited-ish card. Very cool, though, but limited-ish card. Next up, we've got Fantasiamal Shieldback, a 1/3 Turtle Illusion for a single blue mana. Becomes the target of a spell ability, sacrifice it. When it dies, draw a card. Yeah, more of a limited card again. Like, it's just like a tiny little illusion. It replaced itself, which is nice, so it's kind of like a cantrip, which is good, but yeah, like, yeah, it's just a 1/3. Okay. Next up, Razorgrass Invoker, a 4/3 Elf Scout for 4 mana in green. Vigilance, pay 8. It and up to one other target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. I mean, unless you've got like a really weird win condition where you're like, okay, I specifically want to pump this. I mean, I've had weirder win conditions, I guess, but yeah, it's a mana dump that costs a lot of mana. There you go. Okay. Next up. Provoke Demise. Sorcery for 5 mana in black. The spell costs 2 less to cast if it targets a creature with mana value 3 or less. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. You gain 2 life. I like that. I do like that we are actually getting like a, hey, if it's a smaller creature, you pay less, okay? 3 mana is still a good amount to pay, though, for just getting a small creature back, but at least it's less than 5. Gaining 2 life doesn't really matter all that much. Like, if you just have, like, one of those decks out there, which is just, like, all reanimation spells, cool. Keep in mind that this is only from your graveyard, though, so do keep that in mind. That being said, yeah, I mean, there are definitely worse reanimation spells out there. Next up, Sandstorm Crasher, a 3/4 trampling Minotaur Berserk Wizard. That's a thing. For 4 mana in red, you may exert it as it attacks. When you do, create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of target creature you control. Sacrifice the token at the beginning of the next end step. Yeah, that's quite good. Again, like, you can exert it, so... yeah, that's keeping it tapped down for another turn if you don't remember what that is, unless you can untap in a different way. But yeah, being able to copy another one. That being said, the token does go away. But yeah, of course, there are ways to keep those tokens around potentially with, like, you know, end the turn type effects, or yeah, populating, making an extra copy of that token as well. Minotaur Tribal, rejoice, you got another Minotaur, that's good. But yeah, very specific, or you could just kind of use it to use like ETBs or LTBs with this as well. So if you already have like a deck that really cares about that, again, like I talked about earlier, that like new Heat Shimmer kind of card, definitely consider this one. Next up, Soran Symbiot. I always mess up on that word. 2/3 Fungus Dinosaur for 4 mana in green with reach. When enters, choose 1, put a counter on it, or create a 1/1 green sapling creature token. Very limited card. And next up, Scholar of Combustion, a 3/2 Hoon Wizard for 4 mana in red. Enters, exile up to 1 target instant sorcery card from your graveyard. You may cast that card until the end of your next turn. This is kind of a... it's not a reprint. I mean, we got the like red version of Archaeomancer, essentially. I can't remember what it's called. Let me know in the comments below. I forgot the name of it. Basically, we got a red version of Archaeomancer, and this one is just strictly worse than that for most decks out there. I do say most because some, you know, benefit you from playing things from exile, etc., etc., etc. That being said, yeah, like, you do get like it for a full turn, which is nice. So you get it for a full turn. End of your next turn is when like you don't get access to that spell anymore. So you usually will get to be able to play that. But yeah, just being able to just straight up get a card back from your graveyard to your hand obviously is better in most circumstances, so do keep that in mind. That being said, they can definitely see playing the same deck alongside each other like spell slinging type things. ETB, use it, abuse it. Got it. Next up, Scourge of the Undercity. A 2/1 Gorgon Vampire with lifelink for 2 mana in black. Whenever it enters, another target creature control gains a lifelink until end of turn. Yeah, more of a limited card. Okay, next up. Shardless Outlander, a 6/5 Construct Scout for 7 mana, which looks like Golos. Is this Golos? Is Golos now just a common? Okay, moving on. Trample, basic land cycling for 2. I mean, there's only so many like basic land cycling cards out there that cost like, I mean, just like strictly like generic mana, which is interesting that we're getting another one with this. It's just a 6/5 trampler for 7 though, so like back in the day I'd be like, oh my gosh, is there a giant downside? And like these days it's like, why doesn't it do more? So yeah, I mean, I guess if you're looking for basic land cycling, congratulations, you can use this in any deck. Next up, Slimey Piper, a 2/1 Fungus Bard for 2 mana in green. Whenever it attacks, it gets +1 until end of turn. If you control 4 more creatures, +2/+2, and gains indestructible until end of turn instead. Well, that's cool. Yeah, very limited card, really. So it's cute, it's funny, but yeah, I don't think it's gonna see too much play unless you've got like Bard Tribal. Congratulations, you got another Bard. Next up, Spined Tyranax, a 5/5 Tyranax? I probably said that wrong. Dinosaur Beast for 5 mana in green. Beginning of combat at your turn, you may pay 3 mana in green. When you do, put a counter onto our creature. Creature gains trample till end of turn. Very specific type card. Probably won't make the cut in any dinosaur or beast strategies out there. Next up, Starlight Snare. Enchantment Aura for 3 mana in blue. Enchant creature enters. Tap down the enchant creature. Doesn't tap to control it on tap step. Literally at some point, like 20 years from now, you can build like probably an entire deck that just has this exact same card in the deck, because literally we've gotten so many different versions of this exact same thing that it's kind of funny. Next up, Starnheim, a Memento artifact for 3, taps for a white, pay 2 mana in total, and tap. Target creature gets +1 in flying until end of turn, active as a sorcery. Yeah, very, very limited. Like this one again, it's like nice again when we are starting to get more and more of these, like, hey, 3 mana rock, so we know it's slower, but it gives you an ability. I guess if you really, really want to get your commander through, essentially, and like flying usually is good enough to do that, then maybe consider it, but it is pretty inefficient, and again, it's only sorcery speed, so you can't use it like for blocking, really. Yeah, I mean, like, it's not for a lot of decks out there, but there might be a couple specific decks that are like, yes, I've been waiting for this. Congratulations, there you go. Next up, Woodland Liege, a 2/2 elf Druid Noble for 3 mana in green. Whenever a beast you control enters, draw a card. Oh my goodness, because, well, not to spoil things further, but there might be a beast thing that I need to talk about later in this episode. And also, this is kind of like a reprint of a different one, but this one has like keyword soup for its like creature types. Anyways, elf Druid Noble. Yeah, let's keep going. We've got Wriggling Grub, a 1/1 worm for 2 mana in black. When it dies, create 2 1/1 black and green worm creature tokens. This is a very good card for Riskrat style strategies out there when it comes to getting the, I mean, like, again, creature fodder in play. This, yes, is only a 1/1 for 2 mana. Cool. Don't care. What I care about this is it basically is 3 different creatures in 1 for just 2 mana. That is basically what this is. Also, if you've got like a Taste of Karlov type deck, you know, again, a Riskrat strategy, there you go. All of a sudden, this is a great, you know, death trigger essentially when it dies. Again, you are getting 4 of those instead of 2. It doubles that up. But yeah, at the very least, again, like this is just a straight up better, in most cases, like Weapon Craft Enthusiast type card, where that is like, hey, 3 mana, you get 3 bodies. This is 2 mana for 3 bodies. Again, a great piece of creature fodder for a lot of strategies out there. Also, I guess Worm Tribal too. Sure. Okay, here we go. Now we have a long line of brand new commanders, because again, I told you that we have an absurd amount of things coming out, an absurd amount of spoilers. And now we have finally gotten to the giant line of commanders that I did not realize were going to be spoiled today. So here we go. I will try to do my best to do some analysis on all these. Okay, here we go. 2/2 Elf Scout. We've got Satina, Speaker of the Tadru. And again, my apologies for any mispronunciations. They are going to happen for 3 mana in green. When it enters, search life for a basic land card on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. When it attacks, you may return a land you control to its owner's hand. When you do, put a counter on target creature. This seems like very, I mean, yeah, it's not all that great. Obviously, it's kind of like a, I mean, what you call it, like it's our Farhaven elf, okay? But it's a Farhaven with a command zone, so cool, I guess. But also, like, that attack trigger could be a bit more, less lackluster. That being said, yeah, you can definitely include some lands that obviously have some ETBs that you might want to utilize, so do keep that in mind. Like, I'm thinking like that Hideaway land. Like, you know, okay, cool. Get the Hideaway land, I use the card, I get it back to my hand, I get the Hideaway again. Keep going again and again and again and again and again. I'm sure there's going to be like a Merit Lage deck around this too. Probably not. That's not really how this works. But yes, it's an interesting one. Again, if you've got Farhaven Elf in a deck, you're probably going to consider this one as well, obviously, because it's just Farhaven Elf plus. There you go. Next up, Truus Sprout Sire, a 1/1 sapling with trample for 3 mana in green. Whenever it deals combat to a player, create that many 1/1 green sapling creature tokens. Yeah, I mean, this is just straight up fun if you want to just attack your friends with a goofy looking sapling thing. There you go. And then say, okay, I made it gigantic with all of these pump effects, you know, pump effects. combat tricks, equipment, all the things, anthems. I swing, I hit you. I make a ton of saplings. Cool, I swing, I hit you. I make even more saplings. And all of the, yeah, you keep going with that. You do a lot of fun with that. I'm thinking about what's the one? Ooh, what's the one? Like Ivy Lane Denizen? Is that the one where it's like, hey, green creature comes into play, get a counter on something? So yeah, all of a sudden you're like doubling its power each time. That could be quite fun. Moving on. Herska Sweet Tooth. A 3/3 bear for 3 mana in green, but it is a Selesnya commander. When it attacks, create a food token. Whenever you gain life, you may pay a Selesnya. When you do, target creature gets +X/+X, and after X amount of life you gain. That's quite spicy and pretty game-ending if you played it in the right way. So, yeah, again, the food token is nice because that just, like, lets you essentially utilize that for 2 mana when you need to. So, basically, it's kind of like I attack with this, and I can utilize 3 mana to gain 3 life, and then also activate that, hey, life gain thing, essentially. So what I would do is I would have certain cards that maybe gain an absurd amount of life, and life doublers could be a thing. And you swing with a bunch of creatures, and you'll need 1 to get through, right? This doesn't say activate on sorcery speed or whatever, so thank goodness. But yeah, basically you get through with 1 of those, and then you're like, okay, cool. Well, I gained 40 life. You didn't block this creature. I sacrifice my food token, and then, I just gain life right now, and all of a sudden that creature's gigantic. See, I wouldn't necessarily, if you knew a creature that, is evasive or can get through an opponent, then sure, you can give that creature a ton of power beforehand. But if not, I would just instant speed be like, oh, okay, cool. I gain life now thanks to my food token, and then all of a sudden I pump that creature, I guess to be 43 at that point, and then you take an opponent out. So this could be a pretty cool, it's a pretty cool commander where you're life gain and also pump and instant speed shenanigans. Fun time. Yeah, could be quite fun. Next up, Dionis Elvish Archdruid, a 3/3 elf druid for 4 mana in green. Elves you control have, whenever this creature comes tapped during your turn, untap it and put a counter on it. Its ability triggers only once each turn. Thank goodness, because obviously that would be broken if it did not say that. It'd be like, okay, you tapped it. Do it again and again and again. Yeah, this is great for mana dorks, obviously, which is probably the direction most people go with it. Just chuck all the elves out there that have tap abilities. I mean, obviously mana dorks, but obviously there's other ones that are like tap and pump based on your number of elves or whatnot. So yeah, every single one of your elves that has a tap ability, just go chuck it in there, and all of a sudden, yep, cool. They get all these counters on them just whenever you need them. Only once each turn again, so this does count on your opponent's turns as well, so do keep that in mind. So yeah, I mean, obviously you could be like, okay, I'm going to be aggressive, swing with my creatures, and they basically get vigilance. Sure. Okay, and you still can do that, but it's going to be more beneficial to you to be like, okay, I've got a Llanowar Elves. All right, my turn, I tap it. It untaps, I get a counter on it. I can tap for mana again if I want right then and there, or I can wait till the next turn, my opponent's turn, tap it, don't even need to use the mana if I need to, get a counter on it, untap, next turn, next turn, next turn, next turn. Basically, each trip around the table, you get 4 counters on your creatures, and if you've got Hardened Scales, double that. If you got Doubling Season, cool, double as well. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to get your army massive. This is another one of those that sneaky, might just seem like, okay, that's a very uncommon thing, but you can do some pretty gross things with this, obviously. Moving on. Brawlios of Ferris Band. A Centaur Scout for 5 mana in green. Power over toughness each equal number of lands you control. Whenever it attacks, draw a card, you put a land card from your hand on the battlefield. Yeah, I mean, hey, if you're in green and you like power and drawing in lands, there you go. I mean, all you need to do is just get a ton of lands into play, probably equip Fire Shrieker to this, and then say, okay, I hit you for 21. It wouldn't be 21 because it'd be an even number, but still. I hit you for 22. Cool. All right. Done. Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's, better landfall commanders out there when it comes to, hey, draw a bunch of cards, play a bunch of lands, Tatiova, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But this is, a twist on it where it's okay, power as well, swing at you. You can also do, the power matters type things with this as well, where it's all right, yeah, draw cards based on power or the amount of damage that you dealt to someone as well. It's interesting. It's a very interesting, uncommon commander. Next up, IVora Insatiable Air. I'm going through these color-wise. I don't know why they're in this order, but they are. Green and then red, okay? IVora Insatiable Air, a 1/1 Vampire Warrior Trample for 2 mana in red. When it enters, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, create a blood token. Whenever you discard a card, get a counter on it. Yeah, I mean, this is just okay. Cool. I mean, you're going to be aggressive with it. It's early, low to the ground. You're going to get some combat damage. You're going to get blood tokens. Blood tokens are not the best. You just discard cards to draw cards. It is rummaging, not looting, which is technically worse most of the time. And, yeah, you get more counters on this. Cool. You can swing more. Nice. Like instant speed discarding, you can do some crazy things with that, obviously, but instant speed discarding into like damage doubling probably is probably what you're gonna do with this. Interesting. Next up, Gornog, the Red Reaper. Cool name. 2/3 Minotaur Warrior with haste for 3 mana in red. Cowards can't block warriors. Love that. Whenever one or more warriors you control attack a player, target creature that player controls becomes a coward. Nice. Attacking warriors you control get plus X plus 0, where X is the number of cowards your opponents control. Nice. So basically, if you're attacking all of your opponents, I mean, which is quite nice, you're going to be able to, as long as they each have one creature, then you can make their creatures into, one of their creatures each, into cowards. It's 3 cowards, essentially, and all of a sudden, you can get through more often than not. I mean, not more often than not, but you can take out their best blocker, I should say, and then also you're pumping all of your creatures plus 3 plus 0, so in that way, it's kind of like Melee, in a way, where you're, like, swinging out. This is like warrior tribal, and then also your opponent's creatures become cowards. If you're playing against a changeling deck, congratulations, all their creatures are cowards, which is quite funny. So that actually could really come to bite them quite big, because again, if they've got a bunch of changelings, your warriors get an absurd amount of power. I think there's also, in red, I do believe that there is a card where you can change, I think, 2 creatures into changelings as well, so keep that in mind as well, but yeah, it's an interesting one. Next up, General Crete the Boltbringer, a 2/2 Goblin Soldier for 3 mana in red. Whenever one or more goblins you control attack, create a 1/1 Goblin creature token that's tapped and attacking. Whenever creature you control enters, 1 damage to each opponent. I mean, yeah, this is like, hey, you know what? Throw this in a Cranko deck. It is yet another... Again, whenever another creature you control enters, it's going to deal 1 damage to each opponent. This is yet another, like, Impact Tremors type card. So there you go. Just chuck it in any kind of a deck that wants Impact Tremors, potentially. And then on top of that, it is also token production. And again, it is whenever 1 or more goblins you control attack. So it is limited to just making 1 goblin. That being said, you don't have to attack with this. You don't have to send this into danger. It could just be any other goblin that you have. So Goblin Tribal obviously wants it. Any kind of deck that might want Impact Tremors could want it as well. If you're building this as the commander, then yeah, give it lifelink, obviously, so that you can draw a bunch of cards. Not draw a bunch of cards. Gain a bunch of life, not draw a bunch of cards. Yeah, give this lifelink, gain a bunch of life when you are doing that as well, since it's the one that is dealing the damage, so definitely keep that in mind. Moving on, Cleon, Merry Champion, a 2/2 Human Soldier with double strike for 3 mana in red. Heroic, whenever you cast a spell that targets it, exile the top card of your library, play that card until the end of your next turn. Very interesting. So this one is one where it's kind of like, to me, like One Punch Man-esque kind of deck, essentially. But yeah, being able to just pump this a ton and then double strike, I mean, you just need to get this to, what, 11 power, and you can take someone out. Which there are cards that basically give like +3 power for, I think, just 1 mana typically. Not typically, but they're definitely cards that can give like +3 power. Like, think about Zada cards, basically. With this one, where you just pump, 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 double strike. I mean, you can also like double up power. We've talked about another card earlier where it's like, okay, pump, pump, double power. All of a sudden, this is hitting for, again, 12 damage. And then all of a sudden, double strike. You hit one-shot KO someone. And also, you're not going down in card advantage, technically, as long as you can use those cards next turn. Again, Impulse Draw with that as well, so that's quite nice. So, yeah, it's kind of like a combination of a couple of different commanders. Like, it reminds me of Feather a little bit, too, in that way. Like, Feather gives you those cards, like, back permanently, really, but this one's just, like, temporary advantage, but you can still get a lot out of it. So it's a pretty cool card. I like this, like, red all-in kind of. Like, all-in, but, like, slightly not, because I still maybe get some card advantage potentially off the top of my library, but maybe I don't. Next up, Anzep, Vizier of Hazaret, a 4/2 Jackal Warrior with trample for 3 mana in red. You may exert it as it attacks. When you do, exile the top 2 cards of your library until your next turn. You may play those cards. Yeah, this is just okay. I mean, just swinging like, okay, now my commander is going to stay tapped for a turn. I hope those top 2 cards are good. Oh, they're not. Okay. Yeah, that's probably about it. Yeah, not really interested in this one. My apologies. Inept. Next up, Rev Tith Extractor, a 3/3 human rogue for 4 mana in black. Whenever you attack, target creature control gains Death Touch until end of turn. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat to a player, create a treasure token. Look at the top card of that player's library and exile it face down. You may cast that card for as long as it remains exiled. This is kind of like Ragavan, but for all your creatures, kind of. I mean, you're only getting it for 1. Again, whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat to a player. Getting that for 1 per each player. So you could get 3 treasure tokens and 3 cards, essentially, out of this, which is quite nice. Giving 1 creature Death Touch is... I'm not always good enough to get it through, but again, if you give it to a creature that's attacking a player that's got creatures that they don't want to lose, they won't block it, and it's getting through. So, yeah, low to the ground evasive creatures with this one. Obviously, some like treasure synergies as well as a lot of ramp with this is what I would do, because yeah, you can steal opponents' cards off the top of their libraries, get some really good cards, and yeah, just demolish them with your own cards. So yeah, again, kind of like Ragavan, not as low to the ground, obviously, but like for all your creatures, kind of cool. Next up, Ozox, the Clattering King, a 3/2 skeleton noble, a noble skeleton. I was born into royalty, but now I'm a skeleton. Wait, was it born into royalty and now it's a skeleton, or was it a skeleton born into royalty? I don't know. Like, did it become a royal when it's a skeleton, or was it always a royal? Okay, anyways. 3 mana in black. It can't block. When it dies, create Jumble Bones, a legendary 2/1 black skeleton creature token. With this creature can't block, and when this creature leaves the battlefield, turn target card named Ozox from your grave to your hand. There's got to be some weird combos with this thing. Yeah, there's got to be some weird combos with this thing. I mean, I guess at the very least, yeah. Like, if you had, here we go. If you had Phyrexian Altar as well as Astron's Altar, you just sacrifice this one and then sacrifice the other one, and there you go. There's your 3 mana, 2 and a black. Okay, congratulations. There you go. Keep playing it. So outside of some weird combos that you can probably do with this one, yeah, I mean, it's another one of those cards that's like multiple creatures in one. So good creature fodder. I mean, it is 2 creatures for 3 mana, but you are getting this back again and again and again and again and again and again and again. So yeah, it's a really interesting way to do creature fodder where it is both multiple creatures in the same and also ones that you just keep getting back, kind of like, I guess, endless cockroaches kind of essentially. Cool. Next up. And I guess as a commander, again, you could just build combos if you really want to with that one. Or aristocrats. Anyways, Nazar the Velvet King. A 3/3 vampire warlock with menace for 4 mana in black. Whenever you gain life, put a feeding counter on it. Whenever it attacks, you may move 3 feeding counters from it. If you do, draw 3 cards, lose 3 life. Yeah, I mean, it's nice that you can get counters on it. Obviously, proliferate effects would be nice with it too, but being able to... I mean, I guess it is 3 cards at a time, so that is a decent draw engine for you, but you do need to throw your commander into danger to do so, but Menace is a good way to potentially not get blocked. So, yeah, I'd probably try to get some, like, +1 counters on this, and then, like, proliferate, so you can proliferate the feeding counters, as well as the +1 counters and some life gains, right? There's a lot going on here, potentially, but, yeah. You get to draw some cards, lose some life. There's better ways to do it with other commanders, but if you want to build around it, could be exciting. Next up. Fumulus, the Infestation, I think that's the name. 2/2, a vampire insect. That's hilarious. Just like an insect just like flying around, all of a sudden a vampire's like, I'm gonna bite that and turn into a vampire. What? That's weird. Flying Death Touch for 4 mana. Whenever a player sacrifices a non-token creature, create a 1/1 black insect creature token with flying. Whenever an insect, leech, slug, or worm you control attacks, defending player lose 1 life and you gain 1 life. I mean, this equals Edict effects here, there, and everywhere. That's basically what you're going to do with this. You get this in play, and you just Edict affect your opponents where they don't have any creatures. They sacrifice other creatures. You make a bunch of insects. You attack them with those insects, and you drain them. Sure, you can go insect, leech, slug, worm, tribal, which is an interesting... I don't think we've seen that before where it's like bugs, like in general. Have we seen like that combination of those 4? I don't know if we have. Obviously, if you've got a certain commander out there that maybe utilizes slugs, I'm not going to mention it, but it's one that maybe is incredibly salty to many players out there. Yeah, there you go. Throw this in there too. Anyways, let's move on. Evereth, Viceroy of Plunder, a 2/2 vampire soldier with flying for 3 mana in black. Sacrifice another creature artifact, put a counter on it. If the sacrifice permanent was a treasure, gains life on turn, activate only as a sorcery. When it dies, you may pay 1 in Rakdos color. So I'm going to say Rakdos Commander, actually. When you do, it deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. Okay. So yeah, this one is like, get a bunch of things out, sacrifice them, get counters on this only at sorcery speed. So again, Wizards did limit it to that, and it is sacrificing another, so you can't have it sacrifice itself, which is kind of unfortunate because if someone, say, bounces this, or if someone, say, exiles it, then you're not going to be able to get that out of. But it's kind of like just setting up like a ticking time bomb on it, and all of a sudden sacrificing it, and then hitting each opponent again. Not just, one opponent, every single one of your opponents. So yeah, get a bunch of power on this, probably double its power as well. And maybe give it lifelink as well so you can gain life, because it is doing the, the the damage, so you can be hitting the life. But then also you could go maybe infect with that, like a Tainted Strike, and take all your opponents out very quickly with it too. So there's some interesting directions for this one. Just sacrificing things with it, swinging through with flying too could be very effective as well. Next up, Ophelia Viper Whisper, if I could talk. 1/3 Gorgon Assassin with Death Touch for 2 mana in black, but this is a Golgari commander because whenever this attacks, you may pay 2 mana in total. If you do, create a 1/1 black snake creature token with Death Touch. Pay 5 mana in total. Until end of turn, whenever one or more Gorgons and or snakes you control do a combination to a player, that player loses half their life rounded up. Now, the way that this is worded is interesting. Again, whenever one or more Gorgons and or snakes you control. So basically, even if you have like 3 Gorgons or snakes deal damage to a player, it still only halves their life once. Okay, so do keep that in mind. That being said, if you hit each opponent with those kind of creatures on that turn, each one of your opponents loses half their life. That's still a lot, obviously, so yeah, definitely keep that in mind. But yeah, you could definitely go probably... There are some Gorgons out there that are good, but mostly probably like making a bunch of snake tokens is probably the direction you might go with this one, because most snake tokens already have Death Touch anyways. A good way to probably get them through. Yeah, it's an interesting commander, most definitely. Next up, Tycho the Patient Avalanche, a 4/5 Turtle Ninja. Teenage Mutant Ninja. Okay, anyways, for 3 mana in blue, 4 mana in blue, 3 mana in blue, enters tap. Whenever the creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it didn't die, scry 1, get a counter on it. Whenever it attacks, you may pay Dimir, so say Dimir Commander. When you do, target attacking creature can't be blocked this turn. Quite interesting. So, yeah, being able to, just to have this swing for quite a bit could be quite nice. But being able to have creatures maybe that, obviously if you have a bunch of ninjas, there's creatures leaving here, there, and everywhere that didn't die, so you get to scry 1 a lot. He counters on that. And if you've got ways to maybe blink your creatures, bounce your creatures, a lot of different directions that you can go with this. I mean, maybe even exile your creatures, I guess. You've got ways to essentially get this quite large, obviously, and then also dig down into your deck and get a lot of counters on it. So, very interesting commander. Next up, Paul Jamar Illusionist. A 4/5 human illusion wizard with flying for 6 mana in blue. Enters, choose a creature type, draw a card for each creature control of that type. My goodness, wizards. Okay. This is pretty, I mean, it is 6 mana, sure. But if you have a tribal deck, even if it's not humans, illusions, or wizards, you're probably just going to chuck this in there and be like, yeah, let's just draw a bunch of cards. Cool. I mean, it's on an ETB, but that ETB is usable and abusable because... yeah, it doesn't say, like, if you cast it, so, okay. Yeah, this is going to fit in a lot of creature tribal decks out there. Again, yes, it is 6 mana. It's only a 4/5 flyer, which is not nothing. And, yeah, you get to draw a bunch of cards. So there you go. At the very least, you're drawing 1, because you can just name one of its own things. But you're going to be able to draw quite a bit with it a lot. If you've got a blink deck, congratulations! Congratulations on drawing a lot of cards. I guess it'd be like a blank tribal deck, so usually those don't... I mean, there are certain ones, I guess. There are certain ones out there. Okay, moving on. Plagon? Lord of the Beach. A 0/3 Starfish Wizard for 3 mana in blue. When it enters, draw a card for each creature control with toughness greater than its power. Pay an Azorius. Target creature control assigns combat damage equal to toughness rather than its power this turn. I mean, Ricksmithies. I always do that. Arcades the Strategist decks. There you go. Rejoice! You've got a way to draw an absurd amount of cards. Congratulations. Again, if you've got a blink deck that has some creatures that have, greater toughness and power, congratulations. There you go. Yeah, any of these kind of like wall decks, but yeah, like defender decks, I guess defender decks that allow attacking, or just strictly like ones that are like, hey, toughness greater than power in other ways to actually, manipulate that power, that toughness kind of dynamic like this one has. At the very least, though, this is a good way to draw a lot of cards and some decks out there. Next up, Nerdiv Devious Diver, a 2/2 Merfolk Rogue for 3 mana in blue. When it becomes tapped, target player mills cards equal to its power. Whenever you cast a spell from your graveyard to activate an ability of a card from your graveyard, draw a card, put a counter on it. Quite interesting. So, yeah, if you've got some interesting cards to utilize out of your graveyard, great. If you don't, that might be okay too, because this is a commander where, yeah, you can just keep, if you've got ways to pump it, right? I mean, if you're building around this commander, you've got like Black Blade Forge, those kind of cards, you make it absolutely large, and then all of a sudden you throw like an aura on it or an equipment on it that allows it to tap essentially without having to attack. Like, you can attack, right, still, but there's different ones that are like, okay, yeah, I pay a mana to tap it, I pay a mana to untap it, I've got all these different ways to tap it. You can mill players quite quickly with that, and of course you can use like mill doubling effects, etc., ways to utilize cards out of your own graveyard. Like, obviously you can just like mill yourself a ton, get things in your graveyard that you can then utilize again by casting things out of your graveyard, giving things flashback, etc. Yeah, you can do some pretty cool things with this one. Very interesting. Next up, CET Jelly Driver, a 2/2 human wizard for 4 mana in blue. Enters or dies, creating 1/1 blue jellyfish creature token with flying. Creature control with flying at +1. I mean, it's okay. Yeah, if you're using this commander, obviously blink effects would be the best that you would utilize. There's not too many ways to take advantage of death triggers in mono blue, really. But yeah, I mean, just flying creature tribal deck with some blink effects is probably the direction you'd go. Interesting. Next up, ERD Nan Damoka Warrior, a 1/1 human warrior for 2 mana in white. When it enters, put a counter target creature. Could be itself. When you attack attack creature, they counter on it gains first strike until end of turn. If the creature has 2 or more counters on it, gains double strike until end of turn instead. Again, yeah, this could just be basically like, okay, I get some counters on this, I swing, and it has double strike, and all of a sudden, I'm going to be hitting you for a ton. Cool. Good for you. Next up, Thurid, Mare of Destiny, a 2/4 flying lifelink Pegasus for 4 mana in white. Whenever you cast a Pegasus, Unicorn, or Horse spell, copy it. Other Pegasi. Is that really? Apparently Pegasi. That is the plural of Pegasus. Cool. Unicorns or horses you control get +1/+1. Yeah, I mean, obviously you could just go straight up, just take all the Pegasus, Unicorn, and Horse spells and just chuck them in a deck, and there you go. That's this. You double up every single one of those spells. There are certain horses, I mean, there are certain cards out there that are very powerful, especially, what's that one horse that's like, hey, if you gain life, you get more horses that are indestructible and cool. That obviously can really, really hit home with this one. That being said, keep in mind this is a card that could also technically copy like changeling spells too, because I mean I'm not talking to just like I'm not talking about changelings, okay? I'm talking about changing spells like those like tribal changeling spells, whatever. It can copy those technically, like the one that like exiles a creature and gives them a 1/1. You get 2 of that instead, so congratulations, you get that. That being said, yeah, most players out there probably going to be like, okay, yeah, all the horsies, all the Pegasi, all the unicorns, chuck them in a deck, and there you go. Cool. Next up, Koala, Johnny's Pridemate, a 3/3 cat warrior for 4 mana in white. Whenever it attacks other 10 creatures you control at +X with 0 time turn, X the number of counters on Koala. Whenever you gain life, get a counter on it. Pay 4 mana. In total, you gain 1 life. Yeah, I mean, you can definitely do a lot of things with this. Like, go wide, like Soul Sister type strategy. You're going to have a lot of different instances of life gain. That's what you want. Again, you want a lot of different instances of life gain, a lot of different sources of life gain that are repeatable, not just like big life gain effect, because it's not like gaining life, getting a bunch of counters on it for 1 life gain piece. It's not like, oh, I gain 40, I get 40 on it. It's like, no, you gain 40, you get 1 on it. So you want a bunch of different ones. Again, the Soul Sisters, you get a bunch of creatures in play, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, cool, I attack, and your 10 creatures are like, we're massive. Swing, you're gone, yay! So yeah, go wide, gain life, different sources, strategy, quite fun. And also, yeah, like kind of like a combat, it's not really a combat trick because you gotta like, the trigger happens before. So yeah, never mind, don't worry about that. I guess you could do like sneaky, like gaining life triggers though with that 4 mana though, too. Okay, moving on. Samila? Cool. Malian Poet, a 1/1 human bard for 3 mana in white. Whenever you cast your first enchantment spell, each turn create a 2/2 white nymph enchantment creature token. At the beginning of combat, if you control 5 more enchantments, gets +4/+4 and lifelink until end of turn. I mean, like, yeah, this is a limited card when it comes to like it's self-limiting, where it's like your first enchantment spell each turn. Most enchantments don't have flash, so you're gonna be like, okay, I cast it on my turn. I got a 2/2. Yay! All right. Wait for a full trip around the table. Do it again. Yay. I mean, yes, there are certain enchantments that do a flash. Sure. But if you're going to be like, okay, the entire deck needs to be enchantments that can be cast instant speed, you're going to be utilizing some pretty lackluster cards. And all for like a benefit of, all right, I get a 5/5 with lifelink. Look out, everyone. Yeah, more of a card that maybe it's good in other, enchantment type strategies. It could be good in like an Enchantress deck potentially. We're like, okay, I cast an enchantment on my turn. I get another enchantment. Cool, I get whatever Constellation triggers. So that definitely could be a place for it. It's probably better than 99 of other decks than is the commander itself. Next up, Brigon, Soldier of Meltus. I'm not sure if I said that right. 2/2, Human Soldier of Vigilance for 2 mana in white. Whenever you cast a spell at targets, you get a counter on it. Tap, move a counter from it, draw a card. Nice. I mean, this is a nice card where it's like, all right, I can turn my, heroic triggers essentially out of this when I'm casting things that target it into counters. I can also probably proliferate, find other ways to double up those counters, get more counters on it, and then all of a sudden just tap this a couple times to remove those counters from it to draw cards. You obviously have a bunch of untap effects in this color as well, so definitely consider that. Yeah, it's a pretty cool commander. And definitely could be in like a 99 of like a counters deck as well. Just literally like, okay, I don't care about targeting this. Like I'm gonna have other ways to get counters on it. I do that. I get counters on it. And I just tap, draw a card. Cool, why not? Why not? Moving on. Okay, we're finally here. I saved this one for the last because For years, I've been waiting for them to make like a proper beast tribal commander. And yes, I know Morophon's a thing, okay? Like, that's not just like a catch-all and be like, well, you could just use Morophon. Like, it is technically a catch-all, but like, come on, dedicated commander. Here we go. 5/5 beast for 5 mana in green, but it's a Gruul commander. Salinza, the Spike Stampede. Beast spells you cast cost 2 less to cast. Each other beast creature you control enters the additional counter on it. Whenever Salinza or another creature with power 4 or greater enters, you may pay 1 in a Gruul. When you do, fight star creature you don't control. Very cool. Finally, yes, beast tribal. Here we go. So reducing the cost of our beast spells, that's quite nice. Obviously, it is a 5 mana commander. That is a decent amount of cost reduction for a 5 mana commander right there. Saving 2 mana on our creatures, that can be huge. I mean, casting giant ones for a lot less, obviously, but even like the low to the ground ones, just being able to cast some for like 1 mana, that's huge. And there's actually a lot of great beasts out there. That being said, also on top of that, well, there's maybe changelings as well we can consider. Yes, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But yes, also, of course, some counter synergies with this one too, and some fighting synergies. There's a lot of cool things that we can do with this one. Let's jump into a quick take on this one, talk about some cards you might want to consider, and if you do want to consider it, consider picking up some of these cards sooner rather than later. Okay, so while we're out with the cost reduction, Crowen Warchief, let's reduce even further. A 2/2 from back in the day when I started playing. I think this is Scourge, I believe. 3 mana in green. Beast spells you cost. I can't read. Play. I was gonna skip play and say cast cost because now that's what it says these days, but I skipped both. Anyways. You play, cost 1 less to play. You can also regenerate target beast. This is a huge card, obviously, because this literally just costs a single mana once you get your commander into play, and then it reduces the cost of all your beasts by 1 mana further. So all your beasts cost 3 less in total. You can also regenerate your beast for just 2 mana. That is huge. Next up, Manglehorn. 2/2 beast for 3 mana. Again, would just cost 1 with our commander, though. ETB destroy an artifact. And also makes our artifacts artifacts our opponents control enter tapped as well, so it can really slow them down. Realm Walker. Again, changelings. Yes, please. 2/3 shapeshifter with changeling for 3 mana in total, but just costs 1 for us. Enters the battlefield, which is a creature type. Beast. You immediately top card your library anytime. Cast those beasts off the top of your library. That's a huge amount of value. Torian Mauler, of course, the changeling hero for everyone. 2/2 shapeshifter changeling for 3 mana in red. When an opponent casts a spell, put a counter on it. Yeah, this can get massive over time. And again, it is a beast. It actually kind of looks like a beast just in the art anyways. Wirewood Savage. Again, I can't talk. We earlier talked about a card that basically had this as well. 2/2 elf for 3 mana in green. Whenever a beast comes into play, you may draw a card. Keep in mind, this one does say a beast, not a beast you control. So if our opponents haven't played any beasts or any changelings, we can draw cards too. Nice! So there you go. Next up, Blossoming Bog Beast. A 3/3 beast for 5 mana in total, would just cost us 3 though. Whenever it attacks, you gain 2 life. Then creature control get trample and get +X/+X to for X amount of life you gain this turn. Yeah, this can be a good pump effect for you. Obviously, there might not be other life gain synergies that you really have in the deck, but maybe you do. Speaking of which, Elder Gargaroth, a 6/6 beast for 5 mana. Vigilance Reach Trample. Whenever it attacks or blocks, choose 1. 3/3 beast creature token. Gain 3 life, draw a card. So again, there is some maybe life gain that you can have from some other beasts. There you go. Cool. But also just make more beast tokens. Cool. Why not? Draw cards too if you need it. Spade of Witch, Garrick's Pack Leader, a 4/4 beast for 5 mana in total. Whenever creature you control with power 3 or greater enters, you may draw a card. Again, already talked about a lot of ways to make beasts. We got beasts that make other beasts as well. Herd Baloth, a 4/4 beast for 5 mana. Whenever 1 or more counters are put on it, you may create a 4/4 green beast creature token. Here's the thing again, with our commander, it's like, oh, you're a beast? Cool, get a counter. This is like, okay, cool, I'll make another beast, which also gets counter. Awesome. There's also some combos that you can do this one, but not just straight up with this commander. Next up, Quartzwood Crasher, a 6/6 dinosaur beast with trample for 5 mana in Gruul. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control with trample deal combat damage to a player, create an XX green dinosaur beast creature with trample where X amount of damage creatures dealt to that player. That is a lot. a lot of great things can happen with this one. Thrag Tusk, 5/3 beast for 5 mana in total. Enters the battlefield, gain 5 life. Again, some life gain synergy with that too. Leaves the battlefield, make a 3/3. So again, it replaces itself as well. Oh my goodness. Of course, Rampaging Bao sees play in so many decks out there. 6/6 beast trample for 6 mana, but again, with this commander, it's just 4 mana for this thing. On top of that, whenever any land comes into play under your control, you make a 4/4 beast, which again, all these keep all this in mind, right? You're getting more counters on this, and you can also pay to like fight with your commander and take things out, which is lovely. On top of that, Woodland Beast, a really good card. 6/5 beast for 6 mana in green. enter, search library for a knowledge or green creature card with convert mana cost 3 or less by the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Already talked about a couple of great ones to consider, and it could be a beast. Why not? Cultivator Colossus. Oh my goodness, this thing is disgusting. Star Plant Beast with trample for 7 mana in total, but would just be 5 with this commander. Power touch equal to the number of lands you control. That's nice. More importantly, though, you enter the battlefield and put a land card from your hand on the battlefield tapped. If you do draw a card, repeat the process. Dump a bunch of lands into play, draw a bunch of cards. What's not to love about that for you? Garruk's Horde. Yeah, another great card. 7/7 Trampler for, well, would be 5 mana. Play the top card of your library revealed. You may cast top a card of your library. It's a creature card. Again, we talked about that Changelinger that basically does this. This is just a bigger version of it for Beast specifically. Gruul Rage Beast. If you want to go really aggressive and slightly risky, but really aggressive, use this. It's fun. 6/6 Beast for 7 mana in total. Would just be 5 though. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, that creature fights our creature opponent controls. You have to keep fighting. You must fight with all your creatures. Obviously, your opponents have smaller creatures. That's great. If they don't, maybe you need something like a Spearbreaker Behemoth. A 5/5 Beast with Indestructible that costs 7 mana. Target creature with power 5 or greater gains Indestructible if target for just a single mana. Yeah, again, with all these counters going around, all these ways to pump, you can definitely have a massive army that is quite massive, and this can massively protect them massive amounts of the time. I was trying to keep using the word massive. Speaking of massive, Creative Behemoth, perhaps the most famous beast of all time. A 5/5 Beast with haste for 8 mana, but with this commander, you're just paying 6. Gross. Enters the battlefield. Creature control, get trample, get +X+X up to X the number of creature control. And one of the most popular finishers out there, and would definitely be a great finisher for this commander as well. Again, if you are interested in these cards, check out that card list link in the description below. And of course, as always, well, you're going to stay tuned for even more exciting quick takes and spoilers on this channel because, well, I'm doing my best to stay on top of all these, and I didn't realize that these spoilers were coming out. I am sorry for Jumpstart. I did not realize that, but you know what? I'm doing my best to keep up. And with that, this episode is coming to a close. Comment below with your thoughts on it. And of course, as always, thanks again, and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.